Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today I'm coming to you from my counseling office because holiday hours have really hit. But I wanted to make sure that I got a chance to address with you something that I keep hearing a lot. And there's no easy way to answer this question, so I'm just going to throw it out there, right? The question I keep getting is, how do I know I'm really gay? AKA, how do I know that I do not want a heterosexual relationship? It comes up a lot this time of year because the holiday season, no matter what you celebrate and what you don't celebrate, all around you is the idea of coupling up, of having people that are yours, having to see family that maybe gaslights you or doesn't understand who you are. All of those different things, the push to be with somebody and maybe the internal desire to be with somebody, but also the fear of blowing up your life if you do what you think is authentically what you want. I'd be lying to you if I told you there was one answer. And I think that's the frustrating thing for people, is there's not one answer to this question that can help you figure that out. Because the question itself is prompted by your own internal doubts, by your own internalized homophobia, by whatever messages were given you about relationships, about sex and sexuality. The things that you've learned your whole life, you have to spend time unlearning if you are going to live in a way that is counter to it. When I encourage people on this channel, clients of mine, friends of mine, to not take a label, it feels funny. And the reason it feels funny, the only reason it feels funny, is because that's also what parents do to their kids, or what one spouse will do to the other one when they say, I think I might be, or I think this is what's happening with me. I'll say,
oh, don't put a label on it.
Don't worry about it.
Just figure it out as it comes.
And it comes off as very like laissez-faire and like laid back and great. That's awesome, I guess. That's not how it's heard usually. Typically it's heard as minimizing, and it's heard as,
we don't want to accept the truth of what you're saying.
So we want you to be able to think about it.
because man, when you come out, you can't walk that back. Why not? The idea that we come out one time and are out, or the idea that we can't change our labels or evolve as people over time, it's so boring. It's so boring. I don't want my life like that. Do you? So when people ask me, how do I know that I'm gay? The sarcastic response, which I don't do all the time, but the sarcastic response would be, well, how did you know you liked men if you're socialized as a girl? Or how did you know you liked women if you're socialized as a boy? How did you know that you liked somebody you've been in a relationship with? How did you know? The message I hear from so many people is,
What if I'm wrong?
and my response is, what if you are wrong? The idea that being wrong, the idea of taking on a label and it not fitting, or it feeling different, or it's this big catastrophic thing because you've already told people, all of those ideas come from homophobia. It comes from the idea that saying that you're gay is wrong somehow and bad somehow. And there's an effort piece to this, right? To put the effort out to tell people who you are kind of sucks then when you end up saying, no, actually, I'm this, or I know myself better now and it's this, or the ways that we walk things back. It's scary to have to push through all of that and then think about whether or not we need to change things. It's only scary if we see it as a bad thing. It's only scary if the people around us see it as a bad thing. If you're telling your parents or your friends or maybe a spouse that you are not straight and they receive it, let's say they receive it well, that's fantastic. You might still have that question of, what if I'm not this label that I've taken? What if I'm not gay? The idea of what if I'm actually straight and didn't realize it is a bit of a foreign one, I think, to people who've been in the queer community for a long time. And here's why. When you grow up being exposed constantly to heterosexuality, and you grow up with these heteronormative roles and expectations and gender roles and expectations, when you're constantly educated in that form and the verbal and nonverbal cues around you are all going that way, it is very unlikely that due to, I don't know, TikTok during the pandemic, you're going to explore a potential label that is going to interest you and feel right to you. And then later on, you'll be like, oh, just kidding, I was straight all along. If we had queer representation in media, if we had a lot of queer movies or artists or anything, leaders, politicians, actors, if we had that representation out there, I could see how somebody could maybe get that idea and then realize, no, I'm actually straight. That would make sense. But the countercultural activity that you have to do internally and externally to even get to the point where you believe maybe you might be queer, it is highly unlikely that you are fooling yourself. And again, I go back to the question of, so what if you are? Is that bad? Is it that bad to tell your family and friends who you are and then say, oh, I know myself better now and I'm actually this? Who are you hanging out with that they're not going to accept you telling them who you are? But that message that you still have to fit the narrative that people have out there is what makes you question whether or not you identify in the way that you think you do. And the older you get, the longer it takes for you to get into a space where you're safe enough to ask yourself those questions, the more you're going to question because you've had more time to fit into heteronormativity. You've had more time to excuse away the daydreams about other women or the fact that when you see a sex scene, you're looking at the dude when all of your friends are looking at the girl. It's not bad to change your label. It's not bad to know yourself better and differently and to evolve as a person. If we didn't evolve as people, well, I'm sure we all know people who have not evolved as people, right? Do you want to be them? My answer is the same. If you ask, how do I know that I am really gay? My question in response, very therapist type question is, how do you know you're not? Why do you think you might not be? Are those answers societal expectations? Are those answers responses from family members? Are those answers that you don't fit into some sort of a definition in your head of what that label looks like? If that's the case, the answer to those questions tells you that you're gaslighting yourself. The experience of understanding yourself and the experience of knowing yourself and holding on to that, possibly for the first time, cannot be matched. And it can be really disappointing to have people in your life question you. My favorite is when someone comes out as gay and they're like, how do you know if you haven't been with a woman, if you haven't been with a man? How do you know? Does anybody ever ask a straight person how they know they're attracted to their opposite sex partner when they have their first date? Does anybody do that? No, they don't. That question itself comes from the assumption that heterosexuality is right and normal and homosexuality is wrong and weird. So those who are asking this question, I'm saying you're asking the wrong question. The question of how do I know that I am, or how do I know that I'm not straight? Turn that question around a little bit. Really dig into why you think that would be so bad to come out as queer and then understand yourself to be straight. Why would that be so bad? If the answer is because your family and your friends won't accept you, or you're going to blow up your life in general because of this thing that might not be real, I'm going to ask you a hard question right now. Who are you surrounding yourself with that is not going to accept you for who you are as you know yourself to be, and is not going to allow you to evolve as a person and get to know yourself more and change the way you see the world, maybe multiple times? Who are you surrounding yourself with that does not want to grow as a person? I think that's the real question. What are you afraid of? Who are you afraid of? And is that person worth keeping in your life? You don't have to have experienced a relationship with someone of the same sex to know you are attracted to the same sex. Just like a girl who likes boys doesn't need to have been with a boy before she knows that she likes them. Like, that idea that a girl would just like be waiting around for a boy to ask her out or to come and kiss her before she can actually experience whether or not she likes them is so misogynistic. And that misogyny is steeped in our world at this point. It's everywhere. So it's not your fault that you're questioning this, but you need to let yourself off the hook a little bit. And you need to tell yourself that it's not the end of the world if your label changes. What is the end of the world is for you to fake who you are for the comfort of other people. Okay, maybe not the end of the world, but why are you doing that? Why? Why does your happiness not matter? Maybe think about that. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. Starting next week, we will be doing 4 weeks of queer holiday movies. My wife and I will be watching them and reacting to them together. So I encourage you to tune in for that, and I will see you all next time. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.